All right, in this video, we're going to look at credit cards and credit card interest and how that works. This is when you use a credit card, you can pay off the amount you charge each month. If you do not pay the full amount, you are borrowing money from the credit card company. The unpaid balance is credit card debt. Many people in the United States are concerned about the amount of credit card debt, both for individuals and for society in general. In this lesson, you will use skills and ideas from previous lessons to think about some issues related to credit cards. The top statement above is called a disclosure statement. It's where the credit card company tells you what they're going to charge you. You can see in this case, the annual percentage rate is going to be 0. That's an introductory APR for 6 months from the date of account opening. After that, your APR will be 10.99% to 23.99%. Notice they don't say it will be from 11% to 24% because they think this sounds a little bit lower. They base this on your credit worthiness. If you have a high credit score, that's good credit. Good credit scores are going to be like 750, 800. Okay. If you have a low credit score, you're going to have to pay more in interest. It says Juanita has a good credit and gets the lowest interest rate possible. She's not able to pay off her balance each month, so she pays interest. Estimate how much interest Juanita would pay in a year if she maintained an average balance of $5,000 each month on her card. And then explain how we estimated this. Well, she is going to have to pay 10.99%. That's the lowest interest rate, which is approximately 11%. Or if you wanted to make that a decimal, it says if she has a $5,000 balance, so in a year, she typically for the whole year owed $5,000. So we want 11% of $5,000. Well, let's make it easy. I know what 10% is. 10% is going to be $500. But she pays more than 10%. She pays 11%. 1% is going to be $50. Right? 10% of 5,000 is going to be 500. You take off one decimal. And 1%, you'd move it one more time. So you can see 11% would be $550. Now, it's not exactly that because we did round that up, but it's going to be really close. It says Brian has a very low credit score and has to pay the highest interest rate. Remember that highest interest rate was 23.99%. He's not able to pay off his balance each month, so he pays interest. Calculate how much interest he would pay in a year if he maintained an average balance of $5,000 each month. So we're going to do this one exact. It didn't say to estimate. So 23.99 is 0.2399 of $5,000. Now this is where you use your calculator. And that came out to be $1,199.50. That's more than double the amount of interest paid in the previous example, but 24% is more than double 11%. So that's not a surprise. Makes a huge difference. Third question just says, what are things that might affect your credit score? There's a couple of ones. One is credit history. Sometimes when you're young, you have to pay more simply because you don't have a credit history. Have you borrowed money in the past? If you borrowed before to buy a car, it's going to help you put your credit history if you paid it off in time. So, have you borrowed money? Did you pay it off? Do you make payments on time? When you have credit cards, rent, car notes, it's very important that you make payments on time. Anytime you're late, particularly, usually you may not get reported if you're less than 30 days late, but if you're more than 30 days late, they will report that to a credit reporting company, the people that compile credit scores. Another question is, how much debt do you have? If you're trying to get a new credit card and they notice you already have 5 or 6 credit cards and all of those credit cards are maxed out and you're just paying the minimum each month, that's going to hurt you. On the other hand, if you have 4 or 5 or 6 credit cards and you don't owe any money because you paid them off in full every time you use them, that can actually help you your credit score. So there's a lot of things they look at, but basically they're just looking at your history. If you have behaved responsibly and paid off your credit and you make your payments on time, if the amount of money you owe is relatively small compared to the amount of money you earn, that's in your favor. If you earn $100,000 a year and you have $3,000 in credit card debt, that's probably not going to worry somebody. But if you earn $30,000 a year and you have $3,000 in credit card debt, that's a bigger problem. So those are all just different things you can think about. It's pretty common sense how your credit score is determined. All right, here's our same disclosure notice we had a minute ago. And they just asked the question, what does APR stand for? And I think I said it earlier. It is an annual percentage rate. That's the amount of yearly interest. Annual is yearly. Now, you don't actually pay your credit card yearly. You actually pay your credit card by the month. So, how often are you supposed to pay your credit card? Well, monthly. How would you calculate the interest for that period of time? So we call that the periodic rate. In this case, one period is 1 month. You could have a type of loan where you had to make quarterly payments. You only paid quarterly, then that would be the period. You would divide. So in this case, our periodic rate would be the APR, the annual rate, divided by 12 because there's 12 months. It says Juanita has good credit and gets the lowest rate, so she's getting that 10.99%. She has a balance of $982 on her January statement. What is her periodic rate? Her periodic rate is 10.99 divided by 12. So we can see that's going to be less than 1%. We put it in our calculator, it's 0.91583. And I'm going to stop there, but they keep a lot of decimal places when they're calculating your interest. That's her periodic rate. It's that much per month. Which of these is the following is a best estimate of how much interest she will pay. So remember, we said her rate was 0.91583% per month. If we wanted to estimate, that's approximately 1%. She owes $982. So 1% will be $9.82. Now, it's really less than 1%, so it's really going to be less than $9.82. So if we're estimating, that's how much money she's going to owe for 1 month's worth of interest. If we wanted to do it exactly, we can do that process, and we can even do it all in one step. We can say, look, it's 10.99 divided by 12. Oh, I need to make that a decimal. Let me change it to a decimal. I'll change colors too. I'm crazy about the red. So 0.1099 divided by 12, that's her monthly rate, the 10.99 divided by 12, times $982. And we can see when I actually put that in my calculator, it comes out to be exactly $8.99. So when we don't round it, we can see exactly what she gets. But definitely we were right in that $5 to $10 range. All right, another way people use credit cards is cash advances. A cash advance is when you use your credit card to get cash instead of using it to make a purchase. You can take a credit card to a bank and request a cash advance, and they can give you $300 or $400 cash, and they put it on your credit card. For most cards, cash advances are more expensive than purchases in two ways. One, they charge you a higher interest rate. So you may get 10.99% on purchases, but they may charge you 24% on cash advances. The second way is that interest is charged on an advance from the first date it's made. Interest is only charged on purchases if you do not pay the full amount each month. So if I go out on, February, I go out on February 15th, and I buy some clothes with my credit card, I spend $200 buying clothes. As long as I pay that $200 off as soon as I get the bill, they're not going to charge me interest. But if I took the same credit card to the bank and got a $200 cash advance, my interest would start today. They would consider that to be a loan that began today. All right. Notice here we've got the same disclosure for purchases, but when we get cash advances, notice how expensive the APR is, 28.99%. And this is whether you have good credit or bad credit. Cash advances is a very expensive way to get money. All right. Discuss each of the following statements and decide if it is a reasonable statement, and be prepared to justify your responses. So Jeff pays the highest interest rate for purchases. Well, you remember that means that he pays 23.99% for purchases. He would pay 5 cents per dollar more in interest for a cash advance than for a purchase. Well, the cash advances, you'll recall, were 28.99% for cash advance. If we subtract, we can see that this is 5% more. Well, 5 cents is 5%. So this is a true statement. When you get a cash advance, every dollar that he borrows causes him a nickel more in interest. For example, if he had purchases of $100 and he kept that balance for an entire year for some reason, and he paid 23.99% interest, so times 0.2399, he'd pay $23.99 interest. If he got cash for $100 and he paid 0.2899, he would pay $28.99 in interest. What's the difference? $5 more. How much did he borrow? $100. That's a nickel more for each dollar. So yes, this is definitely a true statement. The second statement says the interest for cash advances is a little more than 2.5 times as much for the lowest interest rate. Well, cash advances was 28.99%. The lowest interest rate is 10.99%. All we have to do is divide and see how much bigger that is. 28.99 divided by 10.99 comes out to be about 2.64. So that's definitely true. That's more than 2.5 times. All right, Brian used a spreadsheet to record his credit card charges for months. So you can see he used his credit card for gas, groceries, restaurant, movie tickets. Now, there are some people who use their credit card for almost everything, and then they pay it off in full each month. They may do that because some credit cards, if you use them, they will give you points for mileage or travel or different benefits. The trick there is you really have to pay that credit card off completely every month. If you don't pay it off completely every month, you're going to start paying interest. And that interest you pay is going to be more than any benefit you get back. You know, some of the credit cards say they pay you back. They will give you money back, but it won't, you know, I've had credit cards that do that, but it's not going to be worth it unless you're paying it off in full every month. It says Brian uses the following expression to calculate his interest for these charges. Notice what he did. Brian has that high interest rate, 23.99%. He divides it by 12. This gives him the periodic rate. Or the monthly rate. And then this is just his balance. That's the money that he borrowed, essentially. If we go back one, we can look at that. There's B2, 3, 4, 5. That's all the money he borrowed. When you use a credit card, you're essentially borrowing money. And then this is his periodic rate. Which of the following statements provides the best explanation of what the expression means in terms of the context? Brian added his individual charges, then he divided 0.2399 by 12, then he multiplied the two numbers. Definitely true, but I don't know that it's really good at explaining it in context. B says Brian found the interest charge for the month by dividing 0.2399 by 12 and multiplying it by the sum of column B. Also true, but doesn't really explain. And C says Brian found the periodic rate, I like that, by dividing the APR, that's the annual rate, by 12 months, and multiplied the periodic rate by the sum of the individual charges. This calculation gives the interest charged for the month. This is by far the best description of what that expression means. What is another spreadsheet formula Brian could have used to calculate his interest charges? Well, let's go back. What could he have done differently? I honestly don't think that I would have done anything differently. He could, if I was going to do something differently, I might have simply gone back to here and made a total column and found this quantity first. And then you could have done 0.2399 divided by 12, that's times B6. But you would have needed to get that total first. I mean, I don't see another real obvious way to attack that problem. That is the end of lesson 7A and 7B. Whoops.